Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to learn about HTML element attributes, what they are, why they matter, and how to use them correctly. So if you have not watched my earlier video about HTML elements, I would recommend you to go through it first, then watch this video because it will give you the foundation of HTML elements before learning about the HTML element attributes. So let's start by asking what exactly is an HTML attribute. An HTML attribute simply provides extra information about an HTML element. All HTML elements can have attributes. Attributes are always specified in the start tag, and attributes usually come in name value pairs like attribute name equals value inside quotes. For example, let's talk about the image element of HTML, which is used to embed an image in an HTML web page, and it have a source attribute which specifies the path to the image to be displayed. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code and define an image element with source attribute set as my picture, and I have my picture inside my HTML tutorial directory, so I can link my image element to that image via source attribute. And if I now save it and open the HTML index.html file in the web browser, we can see that our image is represented here. Now there are two ways to specify the URL in the source attribute. First is absolute URL, which links to an external image that is hosted on another website. For example, example.com images and mypicture.png. Then we have the relative URL, which links to an image that is hosted within the project or website. For example, I have specified the source attribute to my image that is hosted in the HTML tutorial directory. Here the URL does not include the domain name. If the URL begins without a slash, it will be relative to the current page or directory. For example, mypicture.png here. And if the URL begins with a slash, it will be relative to the domain. For example, let's create a new directory in our HTML tutorial directory by clicking here and naming this folder as images, and let's move our mypicture.png inside the images folder. So now we have to correctly link our mypicture.png image, that is images and forward slash mypicture.png. And if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that nothing has changed and the image is displayed correctly. Now the recommended way of defining a source attribute to the image element is that always use the relative URLs for image elements because they will not break if you change the domain. Then the image element should also contain the width and height attributes which specify the width and height of the image in pixels. So let's see an example of it also. So open our Visual Studio Code and add a width and height attributes here. So let's say width is 200 in pixels, and let's also define the height as 200 pixels. So let's save it and open our index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page here. You can see that our width and height is applied to the image, and if we look at the page source, that is the source code, we can see that width and height is defined as 200 in pixels. Next we have the alt attribute. The required alt attribute for the image element specifies an alternate text for an image. If the image for some reason cannot be displayed, this can be due to slow connection or an error in the source attribute, or if the user uses a screen reader. So let's add an alt attribute on our image element here. So let's add alt and let's just say this is Shubham compile that logo. So we now save it and open the index.html file in our web browser and refresh the page. We can see that there is no change in the image, but behind the scenes the browser will display the alternate text if the image cannot be provided for some reason or loaded in the web browser. So let's take an example of this also. So let's remove the underscore between the my and picture here, and let's save it and open in the web browser again and refresh the page. You can see that our alternate text is displayed here, that is this is Shubham compiled tag logo. So this is how the alt attribute of image element works. So let me correct my code here and introduce a underscore between my and picture here and refresh the page. We can see that our image is loaded correctly. So this was about the image HTML element, but the HTML element attributes are not limited to image tags. They can be defined on any HTML element such as our root HTML tag. We can define or should define the lang attribute inside the HTML tag to declare the language of the web page. So let's add a lang attribute on our HTML element here. So if we say lang equals en dash in in capital, this declares the language of the web page. This is meant to assist search engines and browsers. Also, country codes can be added to the language code in the lang attribute, like I did in for India. So the first two characters define the language of the HTML web page and the last two characters define the country. Then we have the title attribute which defines some extra information about an element. The value of the title attribute will be displayed as a tooltip when you mouse over the HTML element. So let's just add a heading tag inside our body tag and just above the image element. So let's say h1 and let's just say Shubham compiled tag. And let's just define the title attribute to the h1 element, and we can say something like YouTube channel name and save it. And if we open our index.html web page in the browser and refresh the page, we can see that our heading is printed here, and if we mouse over it, we can see that our tooltip has been displayed with text YouTube channel name. Now there are some conventions that you should follow while defining the attributes that are not required but are suggestions. Firstly, the attribute should be written in lowercase and value of attributes should be in quotes, whether single or double. That is a totally developer preference. I myself use the double quotes while defining an attribute value. You can use whatever you want, there is no strict rule here. But in some situations, when the attribute value itself contains double quotes, it is necessary to use single quotes. For example, if we add quotes to our YouTube text here and change the double quotes from here to single quotes to the entire title attribute and save it and refresh our web page here, you can see that the tooltip now shows YouTube text in quotes here. Or we can reverse the quotes here. So let's add quotes to the entire title attribute and single quote to the YouTube here. So let's add single quote here to the YouTube text, and if we now save it and refresh our web page here, we can see that the tooltip now contains single quotes around the YouTube text. So this was all about the HTML element attributes and the image element. In the next video, we will talk about HTML links and the anchor tag. So this was all about the HTML element attributes and the image element. In the next video, we will talk about HTML links and the anchor tag. If this video helped you in understanding HTML element attributes, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. And also don't forget to follow me on the Instagram. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one.